let's talk about Purdy though for a second, because you had an interesting thing the other day that I saw, and I wanted to bring this up. You tweeted out Brock Purdy's passer rating by quarter.
This was just last season.
Yeah, this was just in 2024,
Yeah, but it was
and
incredible.
it's. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger and people could actually see it instead of me just stating it. Here, I'll just see if I don't know if I can do this. I probably can't. So I'll just read it. Basically, in the first quarter, his QB rating is 106.8. In the second quarter, his QB rating is 102.9. In the third quarter, his QB rating is 88.9. And in the fourth quarter, his QB rating is 83.9. And you didn't draw any conclusions. You just put that out there, or maybe you retweeted yourself on that. I don't know, but what would be your first thought when you see those numbers? That his basically his best quarter is the first, followed by the second quarter, followed by the third, and his worst quarter is the fourth. And this was just last year. What do you when you see that? What comes to mind?
It's so strange because it's like he didn't have Ayuk, he didn't have McCaffrey, he didn't have Trent Williams, and that takes a toll. But early in games, he was playing like the Brock Purdy we remember, at least statistically. Later in games, it would fall apart. So I don't really know I'm not saying it's all his fault. Clearly, Kyle Shanahan contributes to that. But the game scripts, wherever they were at this year, like coming from behind, close games, he seemed to struggle toward the end of those. And we think of Brock as being so good because of his processing and decision making. But this year it wasn't great. And it got progressively worse as games went on. And he was a big reason they lost some games in the fourth quarter. So I don't really know what to make of it, because I bet if we looked at 2023, his splits were freaking incredible any way you sliced it. But that's how it went last year. And it's another reason I wouldn't be super eager to give him an extension right now. I'd offer him an extension, but if he wanted to get the bag, he'd have to come back and show that was a blip, an aberration. I think.
I guess my takeaway on it just is that I think now maybe it's because of the line, but when the Niners don't have like optionality, I just think that they can't do anything. When everybody knows they need to run, they can't run.
Right.
When
everyone knows they need to pass, they can't pass.
They can't pass.
Right.
They only do well early in games because they haven't fallen behind, and so the run pass is all there for them, and everything's kind of, they're on schedule, they're not behind schedule, and I think in the fourth quarter, especially this year when they were losing games, now everybody knows you need to pass, but you're rocking behind a pretty subpar offensive line. Or if people know you need to run. It's like they haven't been able to run for a yard when they need one. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say, because Brock, the turnovers are his. I mean, and he needs to be a whole lot better with the football going forward than he was this year, especially at the end of games. But I don't know. To me, maybe that's a statement of Kyle's offense only works when he's got that run pass thing going, when he's got play action and the defense doesn't know, they can't pin their ears back. But as soon as it's more of a defined situation, it seems like his offense is easy to defend.
We've seen Brock like early in games when he has that, optionality, as you put it, or when the team is really good, when you have to defend everything honestly, he's really good. And even this season, this is the crazy split to me. First half of games, simple as first half this season, 12 touchdown passes, 2 picks. 2. He was great in the first half this year. That's a 6-to-1 ratio. Then in the second half of the same season, he threw 8 touchdown passes and 10 picks. So some of that is on his offensive line and some of that's on Kyle, but a lot of those picks were bad decisions on his part where he threw it and you're like, what? Brock? That's not you. But I mean, we also saw that from Justin Herbert in the playoffs and Jared Goff in the playoffs. Like, quarterbacks in the NFL aren't immune to this, and he had such a hot start that maybe we think that it was never going to happen for Brock, but it happens to every quarterback. Lamar Jackson.
And it's funny. I said to Shanahan late in the year, I said, can you coach Brock out of this super aggressive mindset? And he's like, I disagree that he has a super aggressive mindset. And this was on the heels of him throwing the interception in the Rams game, where the Rams were playing to take away the deep ball. He had three guys open underneath. It was first down. There was plenty of time left in the game, and he blindly threw one while he was taking a rusher to his face down the field and just kind of floated it. And JJ, couldn't get there to basically break it up. So it was like the world's easiest interception. And to me, it was an obvious example of Brock being over aggressive, but Shanahan wouldn't go there. He was like, no, I don't think he's over aggressive. I thought that was interesting that he, wanted to defend him there instead of just being like, hey, you know what? Yeah, he got way too aggressive on that particular play.
I mean, there was the interception late where he like forced the ball to Jawan Jennings in triple coverage. I mean, I remember that one. There were some plays from Brock late in games. It's like, man, you are trying way too hard to get this $60 million a year. It seems like, and he even said it at the end of the year. He's like, you know what? I got to get back to the mindset I had when I was a rookie, when I was just trying to prove that I belonged. Right. Because the mindset you have right now, it seems like, I mean, I'm just guessing, it seems like you're implying is that it's not enough to just do your job. I have to show that I'm special. I have to show that I'm elite, whatever the hell that even means. There is no definition. So it seemed like he was caught up in trying to do a little too much and show, that he's a playmaker when all he really needs to do is execute the offense. He's so good at that.
Yeah. And I think the Chiefs showed in week 7 that you can speed up Brock. And if you speed him up, he's going to make or worse decisions. And decision making is a big part of why he's good. So if he starts making bad decisions and you speed him up, effectively, you've done an incredible job. Now, Albert Breer stopped by with Rich Eisen. And in that, I thought that was one of the most interesting sound bites I've heard since the end of the season. He says that Purdy's going to get a Jared Goff deal. First of all, he was very specific. He's like, I think they'll find middle ground. I don't think he'll be the highest paid quarterback. So I think that makes a lot of us feel good because I don't think anybody really wanted to see Brock making $60 million. But then Breer said, hey, they may trade the raw dollars for an extra year of guarantees. And then he said, I think the deal's going to look a lot like the Jared Goff deal. And then he was very specific. He said, he talked about Debo. I think he's gone. He talked about Hargrave. I think they're going to cut some veterans, so on and so forth. But the Goff deal and comparing it directly to Goff, I thought was really interesting. Goff signed 4 years, $212 million in May of 2024. And I think it was the 6th highest AAV. It wasn't the highest contract in football, but if you adjust for inflation, Purdy's AAV, if it was the Goff deal, would be $56.4 million, which seems to be right in line with what Diana Rossini has been reporting, $55 to $60 million, and what we've heard in the last week or so that a lot of people expect it to be between $55 and $60 million. 56.4 would be his Goff money if he got the exact Goff deal with the inflation.
I'm looking at the Goff deal. If it's the exact Goff deal, Goff's deal is structured strangely. So this year, his cap number is 32.6%. That's 11% of the cap. That's a lot, but not incredible. And then in 2026, it's 69.6 million, 24%. And he has 20 million guaranteed salary.
It averages 20.7% of the cap, which is 13th.
That's a lot.
It is.
That's a lot for Jared Goff, who just freaking melted down in the playoffs. I mean, I'm sure they'd like a new quarterback, or if a really good quarterback who's mobile on a rookie deal fell in their laps, I'm sure they'd like to get the hell rid of Jared Goff. So, I mean, is that a contract you want? I don't know.
I mean, I get the sense that the contract is going to be too high in everybody's eyes, but that it's not going to be the highest. Yeah. That they're going to make him. As we said, as the reporting is, I don't think these reporters are awesome reporters. I think they've been leaked. Sorry, I've seen Albert Breer roll into training camp. He's not, it's not like he's got all day to sit there and just kind of figure things out organically. He goes right to somebody and says, tell me what it is. And then, he gets it and then he repeats it. And then he's like, sources say, but he's covering every team in the league. So it's not like they're just going to be like, figure it out for yourself, Al. No, they kind of say, hey, look, this is the deal. The cap's going from 255.4 to 272.5, and we're going to give him a Goff deal and do the math yourself, and that adds up to 56.4 AAV. We'll see. I'll say this. and I've said this a few times, but a bad deal, like some people will say that's a bad deal. Some people would say, "Oh, come on, man, Brock wouldn't get 56.4 in an open market. Why don't the Niners just let him go find his market and this and that?" Because they really don't have the time with the quarterback to play around with this. So it's like the best deal for them would be any deal that they get done between now and April. To me, a much worse deal is almost any deal they get done, but it takes until August or
Yeah,
September.
but at the same time, it's such a difficult situation. I feel like
You're going to pay them a lot, no
it's
matter
hard.
what.
It's going to be hard to please 49er fans right now because they want to keep Brock,
Yeah.
obviously. But at the same time, they don't want to pay him more than $50 million a year. If they sign Brock tomorrow to a contract that averages out to $53 million a year, Niner fans are going to be kind of upset. I mean, some of them may be happy, but I would imagine a lot of Niner fans would be like, really? Are you serious? And I think some people in the organization might feel like that's exorbitant. I mean, he's not coming off an exactly great year. The thing with Dak got $60 million a year. He was second in the MVP voting right before he got that extension. Like, Brock isn't coming off a season like that. So
Right.
to me, the Niners' initial offer should reflect the season he's coming off of. And if they just give him $60 million a year, despite all that, I think a lot of Niners fans would be like, what's up with this team in front office? Are they weak? Do they not? But at the same time, no fan wants Brock Purdy to get alienated or replaced. So what do the Niners do? How do they get this done in the next 2 months?
I know. Well, and it's one of those things too where do you have if you don't want to pay him, okay, fine. But who are you going to go to? What are you moving off to? I don't think, like the options of Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, the younger group of guys, the Mac Joneses, the Zach Wilsons, I think they all are kind of, they're all not as good as staying with Purdy. But that's just my opinion. I mean,
Yeah, but if the
everybody's got a
option
different
is pay
opinion.
Purdy $60 million a year or keep him and sign Aaron Rodgers to a 1-year deal, what do you do?
Right. I mean, I don't want any part of Aaron Rodgers, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
The other thing is like, okay, if you sign Brock to a $56.4 million deal, what kind of what does that do to your cap this year? How's it structured exactly? How does it enable you to compete this year? But I think the alternative, the idea that you're going to try to win and have your quarterback not there until training camp or not there until the preseason, I think that's
Ooh, I have a question.
that's
Do you
risky.
think that Brock would hold out if he didn't get his deal done?
He doesn't seem like a holdout guy.
I don't think he would hold out. That would be dramatic. I mean, that would pretty much end the Niners season before it started. I can't remember any team that won a Super Bowl with a quarterback who held out. That doesn't happen.
No, doesn't happen.
So
I get the sense. Here's the other weird thing that you and I haven't talked about. Shanahan came out a few weeks ago or whatever it was and said Brock's the only quarterback that I want when I'm here. And it sounds good, right? But I'm wondering, is that because he was told you have 3 years to make it happen or you're gone? And then he just knows that he can't get anybody else in the next 3 years, so they're going to go all in on Brock. And because when I saw the Kawakami article that came out, and he's like, "Hey, you know what? I'm hearing whispers that it might be a shorter term deal." Well, I thought to myself, okay, who wants the shorter term deal? Is it Brock? Probably not. Is it Kyle? Probably not. It might be Jed. It might be Parag, who are looking at their situation going, let's be all in on Brock because he's the best we got right now. Let's be all in on Kyle and John because they're the regime that we have right now. But let's protect ourselves against us winning 10 games total in the next 2 years. What if the Niners go from 6 wins to 5 wins and then win 5 wins again? 2 years from now, it's at that point, I think that Jed may say, you know what, goodbye to Lynch, goodbye to Shanahan. And if you get Brock on a short-term deal, you can at least go try to attract your next czar of whatever football you're going to and have a clean slate. You don't have him tied to a quarterback that's won 16 games over the last 3 years, So I don't know. I mean, that was my thought when I saw, hey, it might be a shorter term deal. Do you think a shorter term deal is Jed or Parag or both hedging against the entire commitment so far. That it's Lynch, it's Shanahan, it's Purdy, this is the group. Do you think if they go short term, that's an indication that they may want to go in a different direction 2 years from now?
Maybe. I don't know that Brock Purdy would accept a short-term contract extension. He might just want to
have to be big
come back next year and try to get the deal next year. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think, I know it sounds crazy because, Jed always talks about how he loves Kyle, loves John, loves everything. But, if I know this, it's going to be easier for them to replace, John and Jed 2 years from now if Brock's struggling and if Brock's struggling and he has a big money long-term deal, it's going to be harder for them to get a coach than and a new direction.
You think they'd have to miss the playoffs 2 more years in a row before they get fired?
I would say this year. I think that if Brock gets a 2-year or 3-year deal, that this is year 9. Andy Reid got 13 years in Philadelphia before they.
Okay, so the question you asked me was, why did Kyle say that's the only quarterback he wants? Is it possible that the ownership said to Kyle, hey, this is the last quarterback you're going to get here. You got to make it work with Brock. You're not going to get another 10 years, all right? Make it work with Brock. You've had a bunch of quarterbacks. Either make it work with him or you're out.
I think that's harsh, but I also think it's plausible.
Yeah, it's reality. It's life.
I mean, it's life in the NFL. I mean, look at it this way, Grant. At the end of that point, okay, so 2 more years. This is year 9, and then we're talking about 2 more years, 9, year 10, year 11. That's 11 years in. That's only 2 less years than Andy Reid had in Philly. I'm just saying, if they did the next 2 years, what they did this year, which was win 5 or 6 games, this year 6. I think it would probably take 2. It would probably take 3 down years to have Jed pull the plug on the regime. I think he's that wed to John and John and Kyle that it would take a 3-year run where they won like 5, 5, and 6 or whatever before they would be out. I do.
I'm not so sure about that. Maybe. But if they miss the playoffs again next year, I would be very nervous if I was in that organization. Anyone.
But wouldn't, okay, so let's say they miss the playoffs next year. Wouldn't you say that then going into the next year they would be on a make it or break it kind of a year?
I feel like this is a make it or break it kind of year. But again, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Yeah. I don't. Again,
we're speculating.
I grew up on Eddie DeBartolo, so maybe I'm a little hot headed here. But you missed the playoffs back-to-back years with this team. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Next year's schedule's bad.
But no one expects them to miss the playoffs, right? Easy schedule. They should be good.